Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 13 game Major League Baseball slate. We do have a weather concern in the Philadelphia New York Mets game, also the Boston Baltimore game, but I think the Boston Baltimore game will be fine. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the slate. Before I get started though, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, check in the description below for a link uh, for DraftKings Sportsbook and stuff like that. So let's check that out as well. Let's get into these pitchers here. So pitching is kind of rough today. So we're going to start with Alan Winans for Atlanta. Now he's a boom or bust option, but he's had 5 starts so far. He's been over 12 in 4 of the 5 games. He has 20 fantasy point upside here in a nice plus matchup. He's also had 5 strikeouts in 4 of the starts at least, and he's had some really solid games, including a couple 20 fantasy point games. He's definitely in play for a 15 plus game on the slate. He is also have good chance of getting a win today as well. So I do like his potential here. Then we're going to look at Lance Lynn for the Dodgers. Now he has been very inconsistent throughout the season. He's also been robust like Winans, but he has over 15 fantasy points in 3 straight games. He's got a good chance of a win on this game, especially being on the Dodgers against a weaker opponent, which can boost him a few points too. His K rate has been rough lately though. It's been a little bit inconsistent, but he isn't giving up a ton of earned runs the last 3 games, which definitely helps. He does have tendency to have bad games, but he also has tendency to have a string of good games. So this is a good situation for him, though he is high risk, high reward here, much like all the pitchers on the slate. Kikuchi for Toronto also in play. He's been somewhat inconsistent throughout the year, but his K rate's been solid. This is a tough matchup, but he's capable here. He's got a few good games in a row, with the exception of the last one. I do think he has an opportunity here to have a 20 fantasy point game or more, as he's been somewhat up and down, but he's averaging a decent chunk. And while Tampa Bay is a tough matchup, he's managed to average 16 fantasy points a game in the 3 games he's played against them. Then we'll look at Kyle Hendricks for the Cubs here. Now, he does face Milwaukee today, and a 15 to 20 fantasy point game is in play. Milwaukee's been inconsistent, and his floor isn't as bad as others, but he doesn't have the upside of some of the others either. He is capable of a win here, as I do think the Cubs are going to have a pretty solid game today, but he does have some ups and downs. Then we'll look at Chase Silseth. Where is he? For the Angels. Now he's facing Oakland, and I do like a couple bats on Oakland today, so he is a high risk option. Nearly a Hail Mary option, to be honest, but in his 6 starts in the last 6 games, he's only had 2 that were rough. He has had a good K rate if you can limit the earned runs, though. He's been somewhat up and down, but he does have big time upside, as he's had some good games against Seattle, Houston, even Atlanta. So he is capable of a good game here, and he's nice and cheap. So he's kind of, he's an interesting option. And then for San Diego, we got to have Nick Martinez drawing the start. Now, he's probably not going to play more than a few innings, 3 to 4 maybe, but he's been over 12 fantasy points in the last 2 starts he's had, which is actually pretty good. He went 3 and 4 innings. He gave up no earned runs, and he got a few strikeouts in those games. If he can get the strikeouts again, then he can definitely pay off at this really cheap price. I do like his upside as a result of that, but he is in a pretty good situation here against the White Sox, who really don't have too much to be scared of on this particular matchup. So I do think he's an interesting option here. Moving to our catchers, we're going to start with Ryan Jeffers from Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is going to be a very interesting stack today because they are facing Colorado in Colorado. This gives him some upside. He's had 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He does draw some good potential today and multi-hit potential as well. He's been pretty solid throughout the year, and he does have some home run upside, which definitely makes him an interesting start. He's very close to being a core play for me. Sean Murphy has been very inconsistent recently, but he does draw home run metrics, and he's had some good games recently. Maybe he's going to get out of his funk now, but he's definitely in play on the slate, and he's a little bit underpriced now thanks to his recent kind of upside down play. Austin Wells for the Yankees also in play, kind of a contrarian option. He does have some little bit of home run upside. He's had some good games recently with home runs. He's also had a couple of multi-hit games, so he is capable here, but he's high risk, high reward. He's one of the few guys on the Yankees outside of Judge that is hitting pretty well right now. Maybe in the first base, we'll look at Matt Olson for Atlanta. He's absolutely just dominated the ball. 360 average over the last 10 games. He did hit a home run yesterday. I look for him to have some opportunity to do that again, though he does need to hit a home run to pay off at this price. It's so ridiculous. Then we'll look at Solano for Minnesota. Now, he can play first or third base. He has been somewhat inconsistent recently, but he does draw good metrics here. He's not a huge home run guy, but he does have multi-hit potential in certain games, and this situation is very good for him. And Minnesota's been hitting the ball pretty well most games as of late, and he's somebody that has some potential. Freddie Freeman is also in play for the Dodgers. He's been really solid recently. His batting average has been really good, especially when he hits home runs, but he does need to hit a home run to pay off at this price point. But he's a little bit cheaper than Olson, and that gives him a good contrarian situation here. Moving to second base, we'll look at Polanco from Minnesota. Now, Polanco is a little bit pricey. His batting average has not been as good recently, but he still has multi-hit potential. He doesn't strike out a ton most of the time, though he's had some ups and downs recently. He definitely draws some good metrics here and has some nice upside for a home run on the slate. Altuve is an expensive option today. He's kind of contrarian off of the Minnesota stack. He's hit the ball very well recently. Even though he's only had one home run in the last 10 games, he's still hitting almost 400, and he's managing to score fantasy points with multi-hit games, though he does need to hit a home run to pay off here. And then Torres for the Yankees, he's kind of a contrarian option today. I do think he's got some risk today, but he is capable of a good game here. He's hitting about 250 over the last 10 games, and he does have multi-hit potential. He also has some home run potential today, but it's a little bit lower than some of the other guys. Moving at third base, Polanco and Solano could both play at this position. And I'm also going to look at Willie Castro, and I think he's a core play today. He's hit the ball very well with a 306 average over the last 10 games. Not a huge home run threat, but he's a guy that's capable of scoring fantasy points in bunches, and he's been doing that a lot lately, and he's got a great matchup here. He also has some stolen base potential, which I really like today. Kyle Farmer also in play for Minnesota. He can also play shortstop. He's also hit the ball very well recently, averaging almost 8 fantasy points a game over the last 10, and he draws some good metrics here, and he's nice and cheap, which gives you some ability to pay up at other positions. Austin Riley is an expensive option that you could use today, as he's hit the ball very well recently. Even without the home runs, he's still averaging over 10 fantasy points a game. Excuse me. He had a double, triple, and a single yesterday. Just missed the cycle without the home run, but he is capable of home runs just as much, and he has really good metrics for this game. And then Gunnar Henderson also in play as a third base or shortstop guy today. He's also hitting the ball fairly well. Not quite as good as Riley, but he's a contrarian option. He does have home run potential, and he does need to hit one to pay off at this price. Then we'll look at shortstop here, and Farmer, Henderson can both play at this position as well. But I also like C.J. Abrams has been stealing bases a lot this season. He does have some good potential for that. He's had 3 steals in the last 10 games. And if he can get on base, he'll likely try to steal a couple bases in this one. He has some nice upside here, and he definitely gets on base most games. And then we'll look at Tovar for Colorado. He is a guy that's been hitting the ball pretty well in Colorado this season. He's been somewhat inconsistent recently, but he does draw good metrics here, and he had a really good game in his last game against the Dodgers. I think he'll have multi-hit potential again today, and he's nice and cheap. Moving to outfielders here, we'll look at Acuna first. He is a core play for me. He's just been absolutely monstering the ball and getting stolen bases. He's up to 41 home runs and 70 stolen bases now. Yesterday he's had 7 fantasy points, but I think he's going to have a big game today as well, as it looks like he's just heating up for the playoffs. Aaron Judge also in play today. Now he is finally starting to hit more home runs the last few games, and his batting average has risen as a result. He's had some big games recently, but of course a lot of those hits are home runs, so do keep that in mind. But he is absolutely monstering the ball in a couple of these games, so he does draw some good metrics here, but he is high risk, high reward because he is striking out a lot just the same. Willie Castro can also play here in the outfield. Soto also in play for San Diego. Now he has some good metrics here. He's hit the ball very well with 5 home runs over the last 10 games. He's hitting 436 and averaging almost 17 fantasy points a game, and he's actually a little bit underpriced for this situation. I do like Dylan Case sometimes, but I do think Soto's got some nice upside in this matchup. Then we'll look at Luplow from Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's going to be a stackable team today. He's a contrarian option, kind of a high risk, high reward guy, but he does have some potential today. Though his batting average has not been great throughout the season, he has been better the last few games he's played, and so he does draw some potential, but he's high risk and very high reward. Corbin Carroll is also in play for Arizona. He has some good metrics here. He hasn't hit but one home run over the last 10 games, but he's getting more stolen bases. He's up to 52 stolen bases now, and he has some good potential for that again today. This is going to be a tough matchup for Arizona, so I do think that he's one of the few guys on the team that's hitting the ball very well, and he's worth in consideration here, even though he's super expensive. Then we'll look at Brantley, who is a core play for me. I do love his upside and potential today. He has some good metrics. Um, I think he draws really good home run upside today, and I think he's a great option on the slate, and he's also priced pretty fairly still. And so while he is, he's somebody I really like to look at. Cedric Mullins has not really been great throughout the season, and he has been inconsistent recently, but he does draw home run metrics today, and so I'm including him here. He is a little bit cheaper than he normally is, so that gives him some upside as well. Then we'll look at Ruiz for Oakland. Now, Oakland has some interesting upside today, though they are high risk. Uh, Ruiz is not a home run, guy normally, but he is a stolen base guy. He's up to 65 stolen bases now, and I look for him to continue to try to get as many as he can. I'd like to see him try to get to 70 before the season's over, which is definitely possible with him only being 5 away. And he does have tendency to have multi-steal games, so I do think he's got the upside on this one if he draws a start. You just gotta make sure he plays today, but he's got nice upside and potential. Belady is also in play for Oakland. If you don't like Sosa's pitching, Belady is a guy that could kind of sneak a home run or get some multi-hit games occasionally, but he is high risk, high reward, so he's kind of a Hail Mary play on the slate. And then Michael Harris has not hit the ball very well recently, but he does have the good stolen base potential and home run potential. And he's gotten 3 straight games with hits, so I think he's probably hitting the ball better right now. And he's got a great matchup here against Washington and Atlanta. So, with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.